Members, good morning. We formed the quorum and it's also the appointed time. May I call to order meeting of the Welfare Services Panel. This morning, we're going to conduct a public hearing on welfare and community support for people affected by recent social incidents, a very timely topic, and we're grateful to members of the public who have registered to come today. We've got the paper provided by the administration. And Secretariat, please arrange for the individuals and deputations to come in. We've got 43 deputations and individuals. And the attendance list is found on the seating plan.
From
the administration, we have Ms. Pankit Ling, Assistant Director from SWD, Mrs. Helen Kwok, also Assistant Director, and Ms. Rosemary Kwan, Chief Social Work Officer. We're grateful to individuals and deputations for meeting with us this morning. It's not easy that we have this forum for you to express your views. This is a public hearing to invite views on welfare and community support for people affected by recent social incidents. And each deputation or individual will have up to 3 minutes. And may I remind you that your remarks are not protected by Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance. In other words, you have to be liable for your own speech. In front of you, you will see the headset for tuning into interpretation. Channel 1 is Floyd, Channel 2 Cantonese, Channel 2 English, and Channel 3 Putonghua. Before we kick off, can we ask the administration to walk us through its paper? Thank you and good morning, Chairman. We've submitted a paper to the panel earlier to brief members on the welfare and social support for people affected by recent social incidents, and since June, many families and young people have been affected by the social incidents, and some may even have suicidal tendencies. So together with NGOs, we have enhanced our services for emotional support. And we will also watch out for high-risk suicidal cases online to provide support. And during the summer vacation, even though schools were still in their summer vacation, we have enhanced social worker support to secondary schools, and we've started such services in August, hoping to provide more support to students. And as for youth outreach service, we've also enhanced our services, hoping to help young people affected. Regarding clinical psychological service, we've also provided enhanced services to organizations that do not have any clinical psychology units. And in different districts, we've organized briefings on the handling of stress. And in district offices, we've coordinated areas for providing communication platform and support services. And if an organization has any special needs, we will provide extra support to it. Because of conflicts and confrontations, some areas might be affected by tear gas. So in RCHs or residential care homes in the district, now we will communicate with the police, hoping to provide assistance to these organizations with intention to minimize the impacts on them. Since last night, we have seen very serious clashes, and we must keep up with our support to the community. So for all people affected in the recent incidents, be they young people, members of the public, or professionals, we must enhance their positive thinking, and there should be cooperation among different units. And the elderly and also needy families are also affected. So all service units should be steadfast in their posts, and we should enhance support to them. And we want the community to demonstrate neighborhood spirit. According to reports and some organizations, many elderly persons have been affected because of because of broken down traffic facilities, and so we should be good neighbors, and then we will provide support as soon as possible. As far as possible. Thank you. Thank you. I think all present would be like me, and I feel rather sad, and still this is a forum for social workers and also deputations to tell us what they've experienced in the past few months, and we can put on record for the information of the relevant departments. So this is a very important forum. So I will start the deputations. First, we have Mr. Chen from the Catholic Diocese. Thank you. I am a social worker serving the ethnic minorities. I've got 2 points to make. First, in terms of access to social information, EMs limited. There have been many rumors. For instance, the safety of masked Muslim ladies, and also rumors that South Asian people would be there to hurt people, and very often such news is fake, and EMs do not have sufficient channels to receive such information. The government may think that they can understand either English or Chinese. In fact, many of them do not know Chinese, and some of them English proficiency is limited, and they don't know where to put inquiries to. In the past, the district officers were tasked to deal with such matters. But of course, DCs will not offer any assistance. Very often it is for EM bodies to issue their own statements or explanation to allay the worries and concerns of their residents. But social workers cannot resolve political issues. Very often, people may try to raise issues by means of struggles, and the answer we get is violence, or the people who have raised the problems might be removed. So such issues are never properly addressed. Now, if a social worker sees final words from or a will from a person, then we will be very anxious and we want to help him to resolve his problems. Now, recently in this Chinese university was besieged. I was told that many people inside the university were prepared to die for their cause. So the police have been besieging them, and they will not let people a way out, and instead humane as social workers, or should the SWD provide more humanitarian suggestions to the police? Well, apart from enforcing the law, they should ensure that the emotions of those people will not be further aroused.
I
hope that there will be support for the ethnic minorities, and the SWD should play the role of protecting lives. The social workers cannot deal with political issues. Right, Ms. Yao, HKCSS. I am speaking on behalf of the HKCSS. We have a number of observations to share. First, the social events have generated a lot of social needs. Many NGOs have been working really hard, and they're working flat out to deal with the situation. So let's highlight a number of areas. First, in the community, there are a lot of cases, suicidal cases. The outreach social workers, they outreach social workers overnight. Outreach teams are dealing with these cases. Over the past couple of months, we have been dealing with 90 cases of this nature. The social workers would be on the scene, or they would provide the assistance online. The schools are also the worst hit areas. Many school social workers said that normally in November, December, close to the exam period, would they see suicidal cases. But during these terms, starting from September, these cases began to emerge. I think these two teams are really working very, very hard to deal with the situation. In hospitals, at the worst clashes over the weekend, public holidays, there are no medical social workers in hospitals, and many outreach social workers have to render support to the suicidal people and their family members, and also those who are injured during the protest, and they make referral there. In this divided society, there are many parents or teachers who also need support. The school social workers are rendering assistance to the students, and they're also dealing with the needs of the parents and teachers. On the family front, there are many arguments, a lot of discord in families. Over the weekend, the family services would be limited or non-existent. So they would go for the youth social workers, and some social workers saw parents threatening their children with knives, and these children would have to find alternative accommodation in the middle of the night, and these workload would fall on the shoulders of the social workers. There are many residents, because of the clashes, who are in fright. They are frightened. Social workers are also rendering assistance to these people who are frightened by what happened, and they are mentally incapacitated will have to be assisted. And these, this is work of the social workers. FSA I'm glad that the Social Welfare Department issued a letter in November to relax the FSA. I'm sure it would take an awful long time for us to be back to normal. I hope the SWT would review the clauses in the SSA to identify those that are anachronistic and allow enough time for the social workers to respond. Now, social workers have to do a lot of humanitarian work. I hope that the law enforcement agencies, not least the police, would respect the work undertaken by the social workers. Right, one of the themes for today is to respect the social workers. Mr. Lau Ka Chung, next please. I'm Lau Ka Chung. I am an arrested social worker. I just come back from the scene. I stay out overnight. I'm even changed. This item is about the welfare and community support for people affected by recent social events. Now, those affected include the social workers on the front line. They have a role to play on the front line. Now, what happened last night is an international level humanitarian disaster. Why is it the social workers don't have a role? Why are they getting arrested? Reporters can leave safely. Why are social workers being evacuated? Were arrested. 2 were arrested last night. If you look at the group, you get to see so many social workers who are getting arrested. Social workers are not there to make up for the deficiencies for the government. We're here to fight injustice. It is a fact that there is arbitrary arrests by the police. Injustices are all over the place. I understand that it would be impossible for the police to recognize the role of the social workers because the police have become the highest echelon of the hierarchy. Carrie Lam cannot do anything about them, let alone the Social Welfare Department. But at least the SWT should recognize the role played by the social workers. They're saying that the social workers are masked up and they're defending the protesters. Now, social workers get arrested, get beaten up, and they defend themselves in court. Why? There are so many whys in our mind. In Polytechnic University, we saw what happened. Why is it the social workers don't have a role to support these people? What can you do? You just shouldn't say you regret what happened. Right, thank you very much, Mr. Lau. We'll jot down your question. We pursued the question. Like you, I dashed over from the Poly U as well. Next, Mr. Tam Ji Sing. Chairman, thank you. The topic today is welfare and community support for people affected by recent social events. I'm not sure how many people are watching live. The people who need support the most are those at the Poly University. Those who are watching RCHA 32 or those watching online, I hope that you would support these people who are out there. Like Mr. Lau, I came here from Poly U. I stayed there overnight. I tried to help those or whoever who need their assistance, but I couldn't. I couldn't help much. I very much hope that the SWT will respond to us as to what they can do to help those who are stuck at Polytechnic University. This is a massive disaster. This is not a one-off social event. This is far more serious than the building collapse or anything else for 4 months. What has the SWT done other than doing something about the FSA? I'm grateful to the SWT representatives here. Now we have the youth corrections team. We have the licensing and regulation team. We don't have anybody from the Social Welfare Department who are dealing with the old folks. I've seen some senior citizens, the black cops, commandeered the MTR to transport their officers. and the senior citizens couldn't get anywhere except to inhale tear gas on the road. This is a massive disaster of a massive scale. This is not affecting some individuals. I hope the SWT would offer assistance to all Hong Kong people, not just those arrested or certain families. I am a social worker myself. My sphere of work is not so much young people or those arrested. I would volunteer to go to the scene, but I get insulted by the police. I get pepper sprayed. I get tear gassed. I mean, luckily I wasn't bludgeoned by batons. I hope that the SWT will tell the Security Bureau that the social workers are there to help. We're not worsening the situation. We're not advocating any unlawful acts. What we are doing is to ask the police, the members of the public, to calm down, to identify the problems and deal with them calmly. The last thing I want to see is for the police to reprimand the social workers for putting young people on the wrong track. Cap 505, Section 1 says that social workers are there to uphold social justice and deal with social problems. I hope that the SWT or the government as a whole will respect the legislation. I am a registered social worker myself. I do take note of this point. Mr. Young, please. Chairman, I'm also a social worker myself. At this point in time, I'm sure we're all here with a very heavy heart, whatever side you come down on. I think the culprit for this whole saga is none other than the chief executive. What has she done? She has been very ambitious, overly ambitious, to get this legislation through. Now she dug a hole there and she fell into it, and everybody fell into the hole with her. Everybody has been victimized. Doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what political persuasion you have, every single one is victimized. I'm sure you can feel feel for the people out there. Now, there are some altercations out there, there are brawls out there may be injustices, some are lynched, some shops are indiscriminately damaged. There are some who get run over by vehicles, and they get chopped up. What has the government done? There are people who come out to help. There are legislators, social workers, first aiders, reporters who are on the scene to assist, but someone hasn't done anything at all. I got in touch with the SWT, and the SWT has been very, very helpful, and I do acknowledge their commitment. But how can we, through this meeting, relay the message to the chief executive? I can't see this happening. I try to be rational and sensible. There have been so many things that have happened. We've seen different residential areas being tear gassed. In the long run, in the medium term, what can be done? People are suffering psychologically and physically. How can we help these people? Yeah, you may say that you can do something, but the impact on people is really long-term and profound. Also, in terms of humanitarian perspective, what can you do? The people who are arrested would be hooded. Now, these days, whoever is arrested would shout to the people around them their names, their identity, because they're worried that they may disappear from the face of the earth. Now, how we can help these people, it is very important. The SWT has been doing a lot of things. There's only one single person who's not doing anything at all. I won't name her or him. Now, the key thing is to do something to help the people around us. Now, this is the vitally important thing. Thank you. Madam Sue. Thank you, Chairman. I've been thinking about this for a long time. What capacity should I come here in? When I am a resident from a war zone, my clothes are impregnated with tear gas smell. I just walked past an ATM to take money out of it, and I saw 100 canisters of tear gas. There are so many residents, so many cars in the vicinity. Last night, I didn't see any protesters outside where I live, but the tear gas was wafting in, and even the security guard left. When I went down to see what happened, I'm not living on Nathan Road. I'm living in the back street. My elderly member in the family is very worried. And other than closing the windows, turning off the aircon, there is nothing else I can do. If I go down, I would be arrested for possession of offensive weapons. I'm a social worker. Other than being in tears, I can't do a thing. We can provide all kinds of services. I'm not an outreach social workers. I saw many residents who are in tears after work, but there is nothing I can do for them.
I couldn't even go down. I dare not go down because I cannot assure my elder at home that I could be there to help in the members of the public in a lawful capacity. Please tell the world that I am helping the people out there. I'm not breaking the law. If you cannot confirm or verify my position, what can I do? I've got nothing at home. As soon as I opened my door, I could smell tear gas. Now, in fact, in the past week, I've been smelling tear gas all through the week because things kept happening downstairs in my home. So what can I do to help? In addition to watching live broadcasts, I can do nothing. And please bother to inform your senior officers. You should also let them watch live. Because if you talked about telling us, and if you have not done anything, I don't know how I can go out to help. In what capacity can I go out to help? I hope the administration can address this issue. How can you confirm the capacity of social workers? They don't know how to position themselves. Mr. Kong Chi Yao. Thank you, Chairman. I apologize for a talk about the past. On the 30th of August, we have a group of registered social workers who went to the SWT to express our views in relation to recent incidents and what was the attitude of your former superior and what has happened today. Many social workers are doing what they're supposed to do and yet they've been arrested. So I'm afraid what the administration said just now was nonsense. All right, now let me turn back to the topic we have. The police have been firing tear gas and also blue water with their special crowd control vehicle for dispersal purpose. What is the health impact assessment on for social workers? There's been none, and very often the police are carrying out dispersal action without justifications. I'd like to ask whether the SW has ever talked with the police. What is the impact on social workers? So is it that by relaxing the FSA, everything will be fine? Social workers and first aiders have been carrying out humanitarian care. In Section 4 of our social worker code, we have to uphold justice and to promote human rights. So we're supposed to promote amendment of legislation to promote social justice. Social workers should promote or help the implementation of social welfare policies, and we cannot help to implement unjust policies. And for first aiders, they are providing first aid at scene. But because of the abuse of power and violence on the part of the police, things are very unjust now. social workers provide support to the arrested, and we are opposing the injustice there. And yet the Labor and Welfare Bureau and the Social Welfare Department have never ensured the safety of social workers and first aiders on site. As a result, when social workers are at scenes of social incidents or conflict, we face the risk of being arrested, and we can't tell what would happen after we are arrested. Now, if the SW is not doing anything, I think you are really protecting or condoning such injustice. You have to answer this question. And I have a few requests. First, the administration must have an independent inquiry into the violence displayed by the police since the 12th of June. SWD and the police must state the positions and role of social workers and first aiders as seen, and 5 demands, not one less. Next, Mr. Wang Chiyan. Good morning. I don't know what capacity I've come today. I am helping RPP. I'm helping students of the Shine Center. I'm the convener for a site visit to a new location for the Science Center. I'm also, I live in Samshuipo. I am a victim of tear gas there. I don't know in what capacity should I speak. Anyway, I should first speak in my capacity as a patient. All the roads are closed. How can I go to medical follow-up? The escort cannot reach me, and there is no traffic. I'd like to ask the TD Transport Department, what are you doing? The main roads are closed. Does that mean that I don't have to attend to my sickness? You may as well stab me, because you are arresting people so arbitrarily, and I cannot attend a medical follow-up even though the escort can reach me. I cannot get to QEH or Kongwa Hospital. I don't know what's the point of getting medical treatment. I've been waiting for this appointment for a few years for the sake of treatment and rehabilitation. And what do I get now? Nothing. I don't know what's the arrangement of the hospital authority. I've called the clinic a number of times to reschedule my appointment. And what else can I do? And I was told that because I was not yet 65 years old, I'm only in my 30s, so they cannot give me residential treatment. So I may as well give up treatment. The physiotherapist told me that if I refused treatment, then I would the regeneration would worsen. So should I seek treatment or not? Second point on public education. On one night, at the junction of Tai Kung Street and Taipo Road, I could smell tear gas. The staff there told me that it was the smell of plastic instead of tear gas. Now, the staff and myself could not tell what the smell was, so they opened the windows. Did the staff there want to harm the elderly inmates, or do they want to suffer as well? Was there any education from the Department of Health? We were not given any news. All right, I assisted in setting up street counters. All right. If you cannot accede to our 5 demands, I'm afraid that the whole government has to step down. And I only want government officials that care for people's livelihood. Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Thank you. I'm an outreach social worker. In recent social incidents, people of all spectrum, regardless of their age and economic sector, have been affected. I am more concerned about the state of our young people. Why is it that young people are still involved in this movement? Because young people are not happy with the unjust, with the evil law and the injustice shown by the government. Since June, they have been holding rallies, demonstrations. However, the views have never been heeded, and they have escalated to violence to counter the police. However, the law enforcement agencies are still very unfair and unprofessional in enforcing the law, and this has given rise to more confrontations and clashes. And they have also turned a blind eye to violence displayed by other parties, and members of the public are query whether the law enforcement agencies can still uphold justice and maintain law and order. Because of the inequality in force, young people have chosen to struggle and resist, and there have been many wrongful arrests, and young people are arrested, detained, and also prosecuted. They feel very lost and upset. We should help them to come out from this distress. They have emotional stress. They need support on all fronts. When it comes to support for these people, we have to confirm the role of supporters first. To support young people affected by social incidents, social workers must be recognized by the police and the government first. In a public hearing on the anti-facial covering law, the administration confirmed that social workers could be given exemption under the regulation. Social workers are professionals. They can be professional in carrying out their duties. So may I urge the police under the Security Bureau to treat social workers appropriately and correctly. Many speakers have talked about what outreach social workers have done, and I will not repeat such duties. Now, our role should be recognized, and we should be given gear to protect us from tear gas that's been fired indiscriminately. And our social outreach social workers are not given any vehicles, and I hope we can be given support in this regard. Thank you. Mr. Victor I from DAB, Chairman and members of the panel, good afternoon. Many industries, including the tourism, retail, and catering industries, have been hard hit. Many employees are forced to take no-pay leave. Some of them have been laid off, and the grassroots will be greatly affected. So the urgent task is to help the unemployed to tide over the difficult period. We support what's been launched by the government to help them, and we can help the unemployed to return to the workforce as soon as possible. But then we should increase the number of places, and we should upwardly adjust the $400 allowance, and we should streamline the processing procedures so that we can give them early relief. The government, being the largest employer in Hong Kong, should be well positioned to employ more employees. During the SARS attack, the government created many temporary posts, and I hope that government bureaus and departments can create more temporary posts to relieve unemployment in the community. And we can see that our cityscape is deeply affected. Facilities are vandalized, and we have problem in environmental hygiene. So the government should create temporary posts to repair and tidy up vandalized facilities. And as a result of recent incidents, many rehabilitated persons or ex-mental patients in the community have been affected. We've seen violent clashes on TV, and the Hong Kong has recently done a poll, and there's been a 10% rise in the number of depression in the society. And the women's unit of DAB has done a poll, and it's found that many women suffer from mild depression, and they can worsen in society, and therefore we should provide more support to them. We should provide support to ex-mental patients. The government should also strengthen its 24-hour emotional support hotlines. There should be more resources to help families or people in distress as a result of the recent social incidents. Thank you. Mr. Ho Fu Tong from FTU. Thank you. Now we are more concerned about the labor issues in the community. Hong Kong has been affected both internally and externally, and our economy is in a recession, and the retail and the catering industries are affected. The unemployment rate in these sectors is rising, and according to Dr. Lo Chi Kong, the hospitality, retail, and catering services unemployment has risen to 4.9%, and the unemployment rate in the catering industry has reached an all-time high in 6 years to 6%. There will very soon be a spate of unemployment, and
37% of the protesters who are unemployed, or the people poll who are unemployed, because of the poor economic situation, many get retrenched. 6% of those who have not been retrenched said that they have their pay docked, frozen, and they're made to go on no-pay leave. And there is another survey that shows that 72.8% of the people polled said that the government should set up an unemployment loan fund or some emergency fund to alleviate the plight of those who are unemployed. In terms of the unemployment loan fund, the government can take a reference from the student loan scheme in terms of the repayment schedule and interest rate, in a way that the borrowers will be allowed a certain period to make the payment, and the payment period should be longer so that they would be able to tide over the most difficult period. As regards the love upgrading scheme of the ERB, the FLU polled the respondents, and many feel that the allowance is too low, and the procedures are too complicated, and they have to be made to go through an interview. And the government should make improvement in this regard. Job creation is important. The government should consider measures to make available more job openings for people of different age groups. There are some surveys that show that Hong Kong people are suffering mentally because of the social events. The FLU suggests that there should be counseling for those affected. I hope that the government will take all these suggestions into account. Ms. Wu Meilin, Cleaning Workers Union. Thank you, Chairman. I am also representing the Women Workers Association. We have a lot of members who are workers, carers, be it full-time or part-time. We also have cleaners as our members. These social events have highlighted the ineptness or incompetence of the government. It also highlights the labor policies really falling behind. They are most concerned about how we will move ahead. Now, for those carers or women workers, they are rational and they are stakeholders in our society, and they are very concerned about the polarization of our society. This polarization is happening at different levels of our society. Now, we do have a consensus that a commission of inquiry should be formed. If we want to seek truth, if we want to get to the bottom of the affairs, we ought to appoint a commission of inquiry. This may fall outside the purview of the Social Welfare Department, but if we want to rebuild our society, we would say that if we don't have a COI to establish the facts, we will not be able to get justice. There are many ordinances that are really falling behind times, like the protection for the cleaners, the protection for the workers who get injured. The legislation provides that those who are on lunch break will not enjoy any protection under the law if they get wounded. I also like to take the opportunity to relay the public sentiments. Some residents said that during the flu epidemic, people are advised to wear face masks. Now we're told to unmask ourselves. That is an ironic situation. The police can ask you to unmask yourself if you're wearing a mask, just because they're young people. Now the welfare sector is empowering the underprivileged. Now we have seen the arbitrary arrest on the part of the police, and it seems that all that matters would be just power. That the police employment of power is really affecting people's perception about empowerment. The police enjoy so much power, and they can hold sway over everything. Ms. Limbo, Cleaning Workers Union and the police. 喺呢啲社會事件當中咧，少數族裔嘅清潔工咧，佢哋係同呢啲承建商係打工嘅，佢哋面對一啲好嚴重嘅問題、健康嘅問題，清潔工咧其實咧係冇足夠嘅保障，咁佢哋面對呢啲喺街上面嘅催淚彈，咁佢哋都係需要進行清潔嘅。其實佢哋亦都係冇任何嘅保護嘅裝備，咁但係咧之後佢哋都係需要進行清理嘅工作，完全係罔顧咗佢哋嘅健康。咁佢哋淨係戴個普通嘅手術嘅。
Be fatal, especially those with existing health problems. Tear gas exposure can cause skin or respiratory problems. The cleaners will be exposed to the environment that has been contaminated by tear gas for a long time in absence of protective equipment. Health will be threatened with no protection and mask. They only use general procedures for cleaning. If this procedure goes on, it will be harmful to the body. The chemical content of tear gas, if mixed with other chemical, it can create effect. The government should add more facilities and health check services for workers. Most workers are feeling that it's not easy to assess or recognize what the true news is. Workers wants to know which news is actually true. At our work, at home, we also suffer from the tear gas from the streets. The government must strengthen supervision and do independent investigation. We also suggest the government to set up a team with full protection uniform to help clean up the tear gas on the streets and home. Cleaning workers, they don't know what to do when the classes break out and remain at the scene. We have seen some workers, they have stayed in the markets for like 1 or 2 days where they can't go home. And the government should give more guidelines to the contractors, and especially for the ethnic minority workers who are not being clearly instructed what kind of materials should be cleaned or should be and how to clean the garbages or the streets on which they need to be cleaned. Because I've seen some workers telling me, what kind of materials we should clean. So I think the government should put more interest on this part of issues. Thank you.
Thank you. 接住落嚟
Thank you. Ms. Chen Puyin, the Hong Kong Christian Association chairman, with a very heavy heart, I try to express my comments. I've got a script before me, but it doesn't make sense for me to read it out. My office is on Grenfell Road. Last night, in the middle of the night, we have to decide whether we should make our colleagues work today. We very much like to steadfastly discharge our duties and maintain the normal service. We took a decision last night, and we feel that the likelihood of us being affected by tear gas would be minimal. And it was decided that it would be safe for us to work in the office. So we've decided to instruct the colleagues to go to work, except those who can't. Our headquarters have been shuttered now. Those colleagues who are in the office are thinking about whether they should go or not. We can't protect their personal safety. Over the past couple of months, the NGOs every single day, 24/7, have to consider, have to ponder whether we should make the colleagues work. Do we continue the service? Should we cease the service? Now, this is part of our responsibilities. We have to shoulder the responsibilities. We are prepared to bear the work, but faced with this cold-blooded government, how can we ask people to be positive in their thinking? Our government allows the police to round up to 1,000 university undergraduates and turn them into suspects and make them surrender. And everybody in Hong Kong has been given a short shrift, and we're getting a raw deal. I cannot see how we can, what we can say to our clients or to our colleagues. We cannot ask the government to recognize the role of the frontline social workers. This government doesn't realize that social workers, like medical personnel who are carrying people in the hospital, would look after people out there on the street. The social workers, they may be off duty. They would console people who are suffering from emotional breakdown. For those who are contemplating suicide, we would try our very best to help them. For those underage people who are arrested, we have to safeguard their interest. How else would the younger generation have any faith in the rule of law? The government must realize that the trauma that the whole society is suffering may not be recovered for 3-5 years. I think we need to have treatment after the severe trauma. It's not just the SWD, it's the whole government that should be held responsible for that. If at this point in time the government doesn't abandon the cold-blooded attitude, I cannot see how today's discussion will make any material difference. Political issues should be resolved politically. The government should set up a COI to investigate the police in their brutality and restore justice to our society. Thank you very much, Ms. Chan. I'm sure that this is the intention of everybody. Social workers are treating the people in distress, just as some doctors are treating people who are in illness. And social workers have to have a chance to counsel those who are in difficulties. Madam Wong, on call 48, please. Chairman, SWD officials. On call 48 is a voluntary group composed of about 100 voluntary social workers. We're here to support the people who are arrested for taking part in the social movement. Before I speak, I'd like to put a question to the three officials. From your document, you have highlighted all these teams and all these that they have helped. Let me ask you, do you know how many arrested people who are arrested for this? So in this social movement, do you have any statistics with you? As of 15th of November, the number of people arrested, 4,428, the youngest being 11, the oldest being 83. I'd like to say that for these 4,000 or so people, they are not individual entities, and these represent 4,000 odd families.
It's not that 4,000 odd persons have been affected, but 4,000 odd families. So a social worker said that this is not really a social incident, but a major social disaster. So shouldn't we serve these 4,000 odd families? If the answer is yes, in the past few months, has the WSC done a single thing to support these arrested persons and their families? I haven't seen any. If there has been, there is no need for these 48 social workers serving as volunteers after work, watching outside different police stations to help families to find their children. Do you know how difficult and how stressful it has been for these families? A family said to a police officer outside the police station, "Please tell me whether my child is inside the station. I have to know whether he is dead or alive." And the answer he got was, "Well, you go home and wait." Should we support these families? Lastly, in fact, I have come with other prepared points, but I just received message from students stranded in PolyU. They have sent a letter, an open letter to everyone in Hong Kong. These officials are Hong Kongers. I hope they can listen with compassion what these stranded students have to say to you. If we step back, we are doomed. We have been stranded in the school campus. Our brothers outside are very anxious, and yet we are calm. With our tears and blood, we are defending our school campus from the evil hands of the police. What is our crime? The Vice Chancellor has called the police. He wanted to use public power to arrest his students. We're going to wait until the last minutes. We are witnesses to see how teachers, lecturers, and government officials have pushed us to the brink of death. Students are not afraid of being arrested and of death because history will rule that they are innocent. Now, if you still have any sense of compassion, please activate the emergency mechanism and ask a negotiator to go to PolyU to save the students? Thank you, Ms. Wong. I want to say that many social workers really wanted to come today, but they are now on call at PolyU, and I understand that it's important for deputations and individuals to have come here to express their views. And the latest news is that some social workers have been arrested. All right, we've heard what the deputation. I think we will invite the administration to respond after all deputations and individuals have spoken. Madam Kong Shuk Wah. Many speakers have said how sad it is that the role of social workers have not been recognized. I've worked as a social worker for a long time. I've never seen how such a state, people are so frightened that they dare not use social services. They're worried that the information will be leaked, and service units are worried that their premises might be searched by the police. We are under white terror, and as a result, people don't know where to turn to for help. Even for our current service recipients, well, we have seen service units where in a week, 60% of the clients have called to cancel their interviews or appointments because they are afraid of going out. They are afraid of facing the police and be subject to brutal treatment. These clients are already suffering from different kinds of distress, and the terror in society have caused more mental distress. Many clients suffering from psychological problems are now more anxious. Many of the cases would not want us to conduct any home visit. They don't even want to be reached and were worried that their mental state may deteriorate. We wonder whether the SWD can coordinate with public psychiatric services. In this critical time, can there be more concern shown to them? Can community nurses visit them? And please trust the professional judgment of social workers. In this critical juncture, some social workers may not be able to provide full personal particulars, and the subvention agreement may also have to be adjusted. The social incidents have polarized society and broken up families. We see violence. We're seeing violence on TV every day, and the whole society is suffering a trauma. We've lost confidence in the law enforcement, in the law enforcers. Many people dare not turn to the police for help, and many kids have asked their mothers, how come the police have beaten up people? And some children that have encountered tear gas refuse to go out even after 2 weeks. And we're also sad the police have treated the protesters very brutally. This is saddening and heartbreaking. All right. At first, the people said Hong Kongers et al. Now they say Hong Kongers resist. So the governments only talk about stop the violence. In fact, they have done nothing to resolve the crisis. Political issues should be resolved politically. I think we have sacrificed families and lives. They're asking for this they have this very humble request. They want a COI to be set up. Lives are precious. We're not going to give up any. And I hope Hong Kong people will not lose hope. We will work with you in a steadfast manner. Thank you, Madam Kong. Next, Mr. Yip Chi Ho. Thank you. I am a youth social worker. I think I feel such a hearing a waste of time. We have gone through a lot. When it started with 2 million people taken to the streets, to resistance of violence, and we have never received any feedback from the administration. Now we have a public hearing. We are just, I feel like saying nonsense to the SWD, and after that nothing can be done. But since I'm here, I'd like to ask for some enlightenment from the government officials for some of the problems I've encountered at work. Now there is polarization because of political convictions, and this has spread to schools. Every day in schools, I have to deal with arguments and conflicts among students that used to be good friends, but because they have different political views, they have broken up, they are arguing with one another, and at home it's even worse. Children may have different political views from their parents. Harmonious families are now split, and some young people have even left home. They might be staying with their friends or some institutions. So you are experienced social workers. How do you face up to such problems? How do you intervene? How do you deal with these young people? I find it so difficult. Many young people have been arrested on the streets, and many of them are cases of my colleagues. And some children may say that I was only walking on the streets, and all of a sudden the riot police came to arrest me and beat me up. I've just been bailed, and I feel so frightened going out and seeing the police and adults. I'm in fact very worried talking to you. Will you tell the principal or the police things about me? Well, faced with such a problem, how can I respond? What am I supposed to do? The SWD issued a letter before saying that social workers can provide support to protesters as seen, but it is ridiculous. It turns out that social workers can be arrested and prosecuted for rioting. So we have no choice but to stay in our office and ask our clients to come and see us at our office. Well, young people are so distrustful of adults. How will they come to my office and seek my support? It's utterly ridiculous. There's so many social workers, so many ASWOs and WSOs, so many senior officers here. What have you done in the past few months? It's like war in society. Young people, social workers, and people as young as 13 have been arrested. Has there been any support from the SWD? Perhaps you have, but I have never seen that reported in the news. On the contrary, I've seen many volunteer social workers providing support and help as seen. They have been scolded to be black social workers, how they have created chaos in society, how they are aiding and abetting those rioters. Has the SWD ever done anything? I've not heard of any. I've never seen of any. Mr. Chang Kwok-chung, thank you. I've been an outreach social worker for more than 2 decades, and I come with a very heavy heart. And I'm going to read out my speech with a very heavy heart. I think it's time for the government to listen to the aspirations of the people and stop the abuse of police power. The police is arresting people indiscriminately, so that you can really help people affected by the incidents. And please ensure the social workers are really carrying out our duties at scene and at police stations and hospitals. And I oppose what the Secretary for Social Welfare said when he said that our social workers were not there to help. Now we have outreach social workers, we have medical social workers, we have workers for night drifters. Well, we have a whole series of services to help young people at risk on the streets, those who are in a judicial proceedings, so and so forth. There are duties for social workers to carry out to ensure the rights of our clients. And these duties are not unique to people or to social workers posted to these positions. In fact, it's just a division of labor. In fact, all social workers have these duties. It's just like the healthcare workers. Well, there are pediatricians and there are other specialties, but then a pediatrician will not ignore a man who has broken his head. And it's the same for social workers. I might be employed in a youth center, but I will not turn a blind eye to an elderly person who wants to commit suicide. All clients are our service recipients. Why are social workers present? Because there are people arrested who need emotional support. When there's someone injured, first aiders will be there to help. Whether we are on or off duty, it makes no difference. We want to safeguard all persons to ensure that their rights are respected, rights that are enshrined and protected by our law. And we're only there to carry out our duties. SWD should give us a very clear instruction and recognition that we are helping there to let the police know. We should be given uniform so that they know that whether in hospitals or on the streets we're carrying out duties and the police will not obstruct our duties. From July to end of October, the police have referred only 23 cases for those below 18 years old to us. As said just now, hundreds of those under 18 have been arrested, but only 23 cases have been referred to the police by us. That's a far cry from the number of this age group arrested. The SWD should understand from the police why the figure is so low. And from July, the police have stopped introducing or stop giving briefings for social workers on how to help the arrested persons.
The frontline staff don't know that this service is available, which started in April. So I think the police and the SWD should be in dialogue to make sure that the police are aware of the availability of this service. There are many NGOs, the senior echelon of the NGOs, they are not send the social workers to the police station or the court for fear that they may be badly treated or they're liable to be arrested. I urge the SWD to deal with the situation. Has anybody sent to these people to do what they're supposed to do? Mr. Y, number 27. I will turn up the mic, please. With great difficulty, I rushed over from Shangshui. The director said yesterday, mentioned under the line rock, there is another song that with the lyric that who is sowing the seed of hatred. That's what the lyric said. I think we can resolve the problems somehow. The Polytechnic University is in great distress. During the May 4th movement, the students rose to oppose the wrongdoing of the government. Are they being unpatriotic? I don't think you should tamper with the grave of President Tsai Ing-wen. I am really surprised that the director is not here. Ms. Yip Man-kun used to be here. Has the SWD been downgraded? I'm not minimizing these officials here. We're here to resolve the problems. Even for schools, they have the Alumni Association, the Parents Association. In my alma mater, there is an activity this year whereby the alumni and the Parent Association get together to face up to the problem and try not to give students a bad treatment. Children are those under the age of 18 under the UN convention. We ride on the train in December last year. There was the police presence on the train. We don't have the junior police corps program. When pepper spray was first used, there were some police officers who tried to explain what pepper spray was all about. Now they're using the blue dye, and they will target these at the reporters first. Why is it the case? We have so many psychologists in our society. The SWD should arrange for some psychologists to explain the situation. During a phone-in program, I rang up Miss Sophie Chen, the secretary, and suggested that we should have the district health center. That was taken on board. They should come back to the alma mater and talk to the parents. They should not tell us things that are pie in the sky. Nobody would trust that. Thank you very much, Ms. Namsin Man, from the concerned group for the disabled. Chairman, thank you. We've come to this stage in our society. During this critical moment, the Polytechnic University is in deep trouble. The SWD has never thought about the preciousness of life. Is this kind of public hearing more important than the lives of our young people? What can you do to help these young people? Is it the case that you can't do anything about it? That's why you are sitting here. Of course, you're on a salary. But behind the salary, have you ever thought about why the Hong Kong people don't have any faith in our administration? The law cannot stop all these cases of injustices. These are not isolated incidents. This has been going on for months. The government has the cheek to be harsh to the students. Now you are on fat salaries, you get paid by the taxpayers. But have you spared any thought for the taxpayers, for the members of the public, as to how we can identify some remedies? For the 5 demands, I think you should sit down with the general public in dialogue. The students find it very hard to have any dialogues with Carrie Lam. But they were not given any audience. There were no officials helping them. And the police are allowed to do whatever they like. Is all the power in the hands of the police? Should we all become part of the police and do whatever we like? And they don't care about the members of the public. Are they on drugs? Don't they have any parents? Don't they have any children? How can they treat the children or the elderly people like this? What society are we living in? We are taking a step backward. And you're turning a blind eye to all of this. Are you taking the lies as truth? We don't know how many lives have been lost. There are no numbers. because there is no investigation being undertaken. We don't even know our hospitals. There is no support. Right, we're all in support of you. There are a number of members who have raised their hands, and there is also one other deputation. Madam Pang, please. I am a social worker from the Rehabilitation Association. We have some social workers who are helping those arrested for criminal matters. It doesn't matter what charges, what position, what color people are. We will assist the suspects throughout the judicial process. Now, sometimes it would take 4 months, anything up to 4 years for a case to be wrapped up. There are 4,000 people who have been arrested. 4,000 families have been affected. That they are not affected for 48 hours. They will be affected for 3-4 years. Over the months, the number of people seeking help has been rising. They're not just concerned about the judicial process, they are concerned about the outcome of the cases. They are emotionally troubled. They suffer from family being torn apart. There are some people who ask us for help because they don't know where their children have disappeared to. They call the police, but the police said they don't have the information and make them wait. Or they ask to turn to the lawyers for help. These people don't know how to approach the lawyers. They can only approach the social workers. We are looking for the missing people. And we don't have any response from the police. We get really discourteous or rude treatment from the police. Many people who have been arrested are telling us that in the police station they're subject to intimidation and unreasonable treatment, and their legal rights are not upheld. Statements are taken without the presence of social workers. The lawyers and the social workers were kept outside the police station. We couldn't get access to the arrestees inside the police station. The number of people who are seeking help is really enormous. We hope that the SWT will increase the manpower to support those who are arrested. Not just the young people. There are many arrested who are adults. Their rights and their concerns should also be looked after. Now, during massive arrests, the SWT should play a coordinating role. Family service, psychological service, youth services. I mean, all these different branches should come into the picture. There ought to be a long-term 3 to 4 year kind of strategy to help these people because of the profound implications. The SWT should reflect to the police that the social workers have a role to play when they're in the police station to help the arrested people. Right, that's it for the speaking time. And before I throw the floor open for members, I'd like the administration to make a quick response. First, Director, you might wish to take the floor, please. Chairman, thank you. I've listened with care the respirations and response from the deputations. Let me say this, over the past couple of months, what we have been doing may not be visible to everybody, but I'd like to tell members that different divisions or different departments, of course I can only speak for the SWT, different departments have been doing a lot of work behind the scene. As to the outcome, is open to interpretation. Together with many NGOs, we have been joining hands to offer as much assistance as possible for those in need. Over the past couple of months, there was a colleague who highlighted a serious problem, and that is confidence, faith. Now, for the SWD, we are prepared to offer assistance, but there are some young people or some individuals in the community who feel that we are part of the government and they're not prepared to get in touch with us. We said that we have the psychologist team who is offering support to units that don't have psychological support. We don't have a lot of referrals from them because we were told that young people are worried that because we are part of the government. And some NGOs said that when they get in touch with the people who seek help, these people would ask how their personal data can be safeguarded. We've discussed with the HKCSS and other NGOs that when we provide the service, we're not asking for all the personal data of those seeking help before the service would be available. We have reminded the NGOs that sometimes they will use a code. That there is a hotline, the SWT hotline, or the NGO's hotline, or any extra hotlines. Over the past couple of months, we've seen an upsurge in the number of people who were seeking help, who are seeking counseling. We are reminding that if the people concerned don't want to disclose too much personal information, that would be fine.
But of course, if any follow-up is needed, you have to ensure that you can identify who the caller was so that he will not be required to repeat his issues once again. So we have shared such practices with social workers. So we hope that those who need it can come to seek help proactively. And social worker asked how we could intervene when young people have problem. Well, we have found some young people, we told them we were social workers and psychologists from SWD. We engaged them in a dialogue, and there are different scenarios. They can only engage in dialogue in a very safe environment before they're willing to divulge their feelings to anyone, including social workers from SWD. So we have deployed various means for groups that have more trust. They're willing to meet us in groups. But there are young people who have refused to meet us in a group. They will see us individually. So we listen to their feelings, their worries, and their distress. Preliminarily, we have understood some of their situation. Internally, we have a group from a group of social workers and psychologists to design strategies and methods to reach out to people affected by social incidents and how we can help. And I've heard problems that cannot be tackled by the SWD SWD single-handedly, and we can relay these concerns to relevant departments such as protection of labor, welfare, and mental health problems that need support from the Department of Health and the Hospital Authority. Yes, we will relay these concerns to the two organizations. As regards the police, we have been liaison with the police on headquarters level. We have been in contact with the police to reflect our views and concerns to the police in relation to operations they've taken. But the development of events is such that it's hard for the SWD to demand the police to act in a certain manner. As for social workers, we are grateful for your help to those in need at scenes of clashes. At first, demonstrations were peaceful, and we noticed that some social workers would be at places of demonstrations hoping to help people in distress or emotionally disturbed. On the 4th of July, we sent a letter to social workers. We will not talk about social workers going to help at violent clashes. We understood that some organizations would want to provide support to demonstrators, and we said that if it was safe, that was possible. However, demonstrations became no longer peaceful, and sometimes the police have already announced that it is an unlawful assembly. We have met with NGOs and Hong Kong Council of Social Services, and we mentioned to them at meetings that social workers had to ensure their own personal safety, and they could only carry out the work in a lawful situation. Understand that social workers are very enthusiastic to help. However, due to development of things and the worsening of the situation, well, the police have asked us, under the law, we do not have any provision to allow our social workers to carry out their duties at unlawful assemblies after prior agreement with the police. So this bit is really difficult. You might not have seen staff of our units working at demonstrations, but we have noticed that all units have received more cases. For instance, it was mentioned that there were polarizations in families. Some people have moved away from their homes, and there might be conflicts at work leading to emotional distress. So whether it be our integrated family service units or our protection of children units and our medical social welfare units, our staff have reflected to us that they have encountered more cases and they need to handle these cases. As regards other units, I don't think it is necessary for me to say anything about them anymore, because we understand that different units are being very diligent. They have stand firm in their posts, and units that serve the elderly and the disabled, although traffic has been difficult, they have tried to maintain their services as far as possible, or they are providing services at their offices. So really appreciate the work of different organizations. As said, we have a lot of work waiting for us to do, and that is also for long, and we will, together with NGOs, consider how we can best help. Now, for the three of us sitting here, in fact, we're also affected. I think we have all been affected regardless of our duties and positions. So with concerted efforts, we want to help the community which has suffered such great trauma and disruption. We would try our best to do our part. Thank you. All right, Mr. Shukajan, Mr. Yugafai, Kwok Wai Keung, Ray Chen, and Kwok Kaki have raised their hands. Deputy Chairman, Mr. Shukajan first. Is it 4 minutes each? Yes, I hope we can. We will have up to 4 minutes for both questions and answers. I'll be very strict with time. Well, the assistant director spoke for 11 minutes 14 seconds. I listened very carefully. The deputations asked many specific questions which the assistant director failed to answer. If we have time left, I hope we can give deputations 1 minute each to ask follow-up questions. I hope that by extending our meeting for 15 minutes, we'll be able to do that. 6 deputations wanted to come but could not make it. Either they are now hospitalized or at Polytechnic U or doing a lot of support work at different scenes. Right, the topic of our discussion is welfare and community support for people affected by recent social incidents. Of course, I can understand the consideration behind the Secretariat in writing up this topic. Well, even if we don't call this a disaster, we should at least call it a social trauma. This is a disaster because it's not just one group of people affected. It's not just youth or services or another kind of services affected. Elderly services, family services, the disabled and rehabilitation, they're all affected. Everyone in Hong Kong is being affected. This is what I mean by disaster. But we only have representatives from the family and child welfare services, youth and corrections, and licensing and regulation. What about the other units? If the assistant director is so willing to communicate with us, I very much hope that assistant directors responsible for different services can have a meeting with NGOs in camera and see how different service units can respond to this major social disaster. As said by some deputations, the aftermath of the disaster may last for 5-10 years, and the time to heal will be very long. So is there any mechanism? Will the SWT promise anything? Said by a social worker when there was a building collapse at Mata Wai, emergency team was set up to coordinate different services to help. Will the same be done this time? The assistant director said that she appreciated the social workers had to hold fast to their duties. Yes, we respect them, but I think they should also consider our positioning. They issued an open letter on the 4th of July asking us to be impartial and fair. Yes, we do understand that, but social workers would also want to uphold human dignity and rights. As said in the Geneva State Convention, regardless of our clients' race and gender, sexual orientation, political orientation, our service to him will not be affected. Well, there are accusations that some social workers have overstepped the line. I hope the administration can clarify on our behalf. Any response from Assistant Director? When it comes to the large-scale contingency team, I think more than my department will be involved. So we have to be even broader in this regard. We'll have to think about that. Yes, we are social workers as well. We have to uphold justice. But different departments have their respective scope of responsibilities. A political issue has to be resolved in a political manner. We are an executive department to provide social services, so we will stick to our duties and will take care of the social and welfare needs of people in society. Mr. Chiu Ka-fai. Thank you. I think many deputations or individuals present are social workers. The anti-extradition law saga has led to the current situation. I'd like to know whether any of the social workers here have advised students against going to protest at the front line. For those who have, can you give us a show of hands? Mr. Xiu. I don't think. Well, I think it's just like the government. It hasn't been able to answer our aspirations. I'd like to know whether there is any. Speakers off mic. All right, if there is none, I will continue with my questions. Well, just to supplement, Mr. Kwok behind you is also a social worker. Now, it's a very simple concept. We are not going to guide a client to do this or that. It is solely his decision.
We are very concerned about this. I know that in the CUHK or Poly University incidents, these have given rise to a massive storm. I know very little about social work, and I'm wondering whether the social workers, given the undesirable situation in the Poly University, reminded by texting them not to go to the front line. Have they done anything like that? Nobody raised their hands. Mr. Xiu, I think two questions are similar or the same. My question is, given the situation in CUHK and Polytechnic University, like in Poly U, the situation is pretty critical. A lot of tear gas has been deployed and Molotov cocktails were thrown, and the situation is pretty dangerous. And there are people who are trying to leave but can't. I heard that there are some social workers there at the Poly University. Is anybody in the public, in the audience, who can do something to help the students to leave the scene? Mr. Xiu. Calm down, please. Mr. Xiu. I heard that you are very concerned. I think you can go down to take a look for yourself. Chairman, in a safe situation, of course, we hope that we can ease the tension between the two sides, but the police are enforcing the law. If we turn up, we may be complicating the situation. In Polytechnic University, the situation has not been cleared. I am concerned about the young people or the students. The university has the duty to help the young people, but prevention is always better than cure. We ought to remind the young people to steer clear of danger. I don't think this is a ridiculous suggestion. Right now, Chairman, if I may. Chairman, if I may. Mr. Xiu, I think you've consulted them. They are airing their views. Why don't you turn up the mic for them? I can't hear what they have to say. Well, you're asking them indiscriminately. Chairman, I'm asking whether they would raise their hands. Has anybody reminded the young people to steer clear of danger? Now they're talking over themselves. You can turn up their mic and let them speak as to how they can help the young people. Well, Mr. Xu, I appreciate your concerns. I don't really want to open up this to become a Q&A. Would anyone address Mr. Xiu's question in a couple of seconds? Would Mr. Zhang's mic be turned up? Mr. Xiu talked about prevention. We really want to stop young people getting into trouble with the law. We are telling them that this is a just society and they have a future, and this is a civilized and civil society. They are very disappointed in this saga. They have been cracked down on. All these peaceful protests were not addressed, and they don't see any hope ahead of them, so they are engaging in high-risk behavior to defend themselves. They're defending the school campus because if the campus falls, they don't know what they're letting themselves in for. I learned that a lecturer, Mr. Ding, has been arrested on the scene. How can you make the young people feel that they are safe? The social workers are there as some sort of lubricant to help people leave the scene. And you seem to be saying that the social workers are inciting the young people to take to the street, that this is wholly unfair to the social workers. Chairman never said that social workers are inciting the students. Well, would you tell me, when did I ever say that the social workers are inciting people to take to the street? I said that the social workers should remind them not to take to the street. Have the social workers reminding them not to take to the street and inciting them to take to the street. They're two totally different matters altogether. Is it a fair allegation? Well, please do not feel that social workers are falling down on their jobs. Many are off duty and are spending time helping the young people. I don't think you should be offending more social workers. Well, gentlemen, I never said that social workers have fallen down on their jobs. I'm merely asking a question. I'm asking what can be done by the social workers to make people understand the work of social workers. I think we have answered that. There are many channels whereby we can see social workers are fulfilling their duties and they get arrested. I think I have to control the time. I've allowed an opportunity for explanation. I think justice in the hearts of everybody. Please do not get too worked up. Mr. Kwok Wai-keung, Chairman. By way of clarification, Ms. Lam Sin-man asked why this morning, despite the difficult situation, we still convened this meeting, and why we're not on the scene at the Polytechnic University to help out. Now, this is not the decision of this SWT. It is the decision of the chairman for them to be here. A lot of colleagues who spoke said that social workers cannot remedy the political problems. Now, we've been talking about the political issues for quite some time. What role can we play? I hope that we can adopt a more targeted approach. We all understand that they should have self-determination, but social workers should analyze the situation for them in an objective manner about the factors that should be taken into account. If we do not do this, then we're failing in our job. I think objectively we have to say that the 5 demands are bundled together and they're not achievable. If they're insisting on the 5 demands, then you're pushing them to the front. Although you didn't say as much. As to the SWT, many colleagues said that they really want, they care, they want to turn up on the scene. Now my question is, have you sent any colleagues or have you asked any NGOs to send officers to the dangerous scene to carry out their work? Now we're talking about value for money, that the SWT has to report to us as to whether they made the request direct. And also, did any NGOs report to you that they've sent officers to these scenes, and have they put together any report for submission to you for evaluation? Also, honestly, there are some who held petrol bombs, and there are some who are part of the lynch mobs. They come from a wide variety of backgrounds. Have you ascertained that the clashes have been going on for so long? The NGOs are under you. That during the clashes, are there staff members in the NGOs who frequently take time off work? Because we're talking about taxpayers' money. Director? I defer to Madam Kwok. Chairman, thank you. That there were concerns expressed about the role of the social workers. We understand that in this unprecedented situation, nobody was prepared for what happened. As social workers, I'm sure that they will decide how to handle the situation in accordance with their commitment. There are many surveillance organizations that providing services. We understand that the NGOs quite inevitably would give guidelines to their staff. If you cannot answer the question, please say so. I'm asking for the numbers. Did you make the request, or did you compile any statistics as to any NGOs that are telling you a lot of staff members are absent from work on a regular basis? Please do not go round and round in circle. We don't have the statistics. Will you compile the numbers? We will consider how best this will be done. Mr. Ray Chen. Chairman, thank you. I'm grateful to all the deputations who appear before us. I'm grateful to those who have signed up to come here, but they cannot make it here because they are on the scene at the Polytechnic University helping people. Now, we are trying to think as to how we can help those who are in Polytechnic University. There was one who got a fractured kneecap, and someone has passed out because of the pain, and the government departments should do something about it. Now, we are talking about community support. I think we have to ascertain the role of those who are offering help And we have to make sure that these people are safe. They will not be arrested. They will not be suffering any injuries. The police have massive power. Even the director of social welfare that would be turned away. But within our power, we have to ascertain all of this to start with. I heard from the SWD that they would reflect the opinions. You're not a messenger. You're not a messenger trying to relate the message to the police. You have to ascertain whether what we are saying is established, whether it is relevant. If it is relevant, then you have to hammer home the message to these departments. The director said that in a lawful and safe situation, social workers can provide services. Whether it is lawful is up to the police. A lawful assembly can be characterized as unlawful. Whether it is safe is up to the police. In Tsim Sha Tsui, Jordan, and Hong Kong, is it safe? If the police said that it is unlawful, does it mean that the social workers will have to seize the services and leave the scene, or else they will be held responsible for what they do? If this is the case, say so. I don't think this should be the case. If there are old and infirm in a chaotic situation, in the mayhem, you're accompanying them, and will the social welfare department say that they cannot carry on with the service and they have to leave? Even if you're not a social worker, as a human being, you would help these people in the critical situation. I think you have to get home the message to the welfare sector. There are some who said that they were fobbed off in the police station. I had this happen to me. The lawyers also. We spent 4 hours at the police station, and the police would say that the lawyers are not here. If you want to leave, you have to give a statement that the arrested has, in fact, already given a statement. But the police are deliberately trying to stop the suspect getting in touch with the family or the lawyers.
This is a very serious situation. Last week, I visited the student wounded at the Saiwan Hall incident in hospital. Luckily, he is all right now. I had a chat with the social worker. Well, the social worker was really at a loss. He had to contact the school, the parents, and he had to take care of students in the same school. They might be emotionally disturbed, and then some other students were being arrested. Could the SWD activate emergency measures to help these frontline social workers? Assistant Director. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. With regard to when our social workers can carry out their duties, well, they have to be protected. Social workers have to bear in mind whether where they are serving is in a lawful situation. They have to protect themselves. Now, if you say that you are carrying out your duties, you have to explain to the law enforcers. If their conclusion is that it is inappropriate for you to be there, then you have to follow their instruction. This is all I can say. As for the work of school social workers, a lot may happen recently. Some schools are more affected than others. I will defer to Mrs. Kwok to talk about support for social workers. Well, in the gun wounding case, we have maintained liaison with the school and the social worker concerned because we understand that the incident will cause a lot of anxiety and emotional disturbance among the students and parents. So we have district social welfare worker to send people to help the school concerned. For instance, our integrated family service centers and our psychologists can be mobilized to help. While that student is in hospital, our medical social worker can also see to the needs of the student and his family concerned. So for such cases, we will provide such supports. Dr. K.K. Kwok and Mr. Dr. Cheng Chong Tai and Mr. Shu Ga-jun. Thank you, Chairman. I am grateful to the deputations who are here this morning. I think they are just heavy-hearted as we are. It's not easy for them to be here because even last midnight we were at Hong Kong. At 9 p.m., the police claimed or threatened that they would use real firearms to handle the children. And the assistant director said that if it is a lawful place, social workers can work there. But do you know that everywhere in Hong Kong is unlawful now? If the police determine to cordon off the place, no one can be there. Now, if all of a sudden people claim that a bomb is going to explode and the police has cordoned off the place, can social workers go in? Kwok Wai Keung, he is said to be a social worker. He asked you to provide statistics. This is white terror. NGOs are working so hard during this difficult period, and he asked you to give you statistics of a social worker taking leave. Now, if you do, as he suggested, this is inhuman. Many frontline social workers have been arrested. I don't have to read out the names. All arrested were there to carry out the duties of social workers, helping to resolve the conflict and to protect everyone there, including demonstrators and the police. What will the SWD in this regard? The government has squandered $19.5 billion to help the so-called sectors with economic difficulties. Now, these organizations find it very hard to tie over this difficult period. Will the government provide any resources in cash or in kind to support these organizations? What can you do to help these organizations? Thank you. Assistant Director. Thank you, Dr. Kwok, for giving us questions to ponder on. Now, if there is someone who claim that he's going to ignite a bomb or other suicidal act, then I have to take care of the safety of my social workers. No, I'm not asking you to support them. Your social workers are already there. What measures do you have to protect them? They don't need your support or your consent. The police are carrying out law enforcement action. So I can also follow the instructions of the police. So you will bow to the pressure of the police. No, I did say that I will bow to the pressure of the police. I'm just talking about their instructions. And as for support to frontline social workers, in the past few months, some organizations have asked for extra manpower and resources to take up extra duties, and we've already done that. Some of them are still being processed. District social welfare officers are also providing extra resources And if some organizations have special programs and they need extra resources in the light of recent social incidents, we'll try our best. I'm asking for the amount of resources you're going to give, because the government has set aside $19.5 billion to help the community. I'd like to know whether there is any target on the part of the SWD. Now, even if you cannot secure that amount of resources, at least you should have a target. We don't have a target per se. It depends on the program, the proposal, and also the need of the organization concerned. Usually, how long does it take for you to approve their applications for more resources? We've already approved some of the application for more resources, and if there are more proposals, we have not set a deadline, and it all boils down to the objectives, the duration, and resources required under each proposal. So far, we have not turned down any proposal. 2 questions have been asked: settling the scores after the incident, and secondly, how do they support arrested frontline social workers? Time is limited. Assistant Director. So far, no arrested social worker has asked for help from us. We understand that there are different ways and means of support to them in the community. If any social worker requires the support of SWD, we're willing to offer help. One social worker that was supposed to come has been arrested. Perhaps you can consider approaching him to see whether he needs any assistance. Dr. Fernando Zhang, I think the SWD is not living in the same world as ours. We are facing a continuous humanitarian crisis. In Polytechnic U, as far as I understand, there are over 20 secondary school students under 18. Last evening, Dr. Fong and his son were there. He has organized a few social worker stations, and there were different social workers in different posts. He helped to settle down those underage demonstrators. They were emotionally disturbed. They were frightened. They wanted to leave. Many counselors were there last night. I don't know how much sleep you got last night, Chairman. Many of us did not sleep a wink. This morning, the Vice Chancellor of Hong Kong Polytechnic U gave a phone call to Professor Ting, saying that there was an agreement with the police and he could leave together with those underage demonstrators. They could walk out freely and peacefully. But Professor Ting and his son came out to check, and then as soon as they emerged, they were arrested. Those children in there, perhaps I shouldn't call them children. Anyway, I'm older than they are. They are more mature than many of us here, perhaps, but they are in panic. And there was no leading social worker inside the posts. I think Miss Peng, you know Ting Mai Fong well. He's my schoolmate as well. For this very specific case, you, as the Assistant Director of SWD, now we are talking about a humanitarian crisis. We just want them to leave peacefully. There are hundreds of them inside Polytechnic U. You can call them demonstrators or protesters, whatnot. Our wish is for them to leave in peace. No one can get near Polytechnic U now. And Reverend Ha Chi-sheng was there. The police almost used foul language in talking with us, and social workers are being arrested and beaten up. What kind of a situation are we talking about? We're not talking about political views. Rather, we're talking about humanitarian intervention and to ensure that no children would be seriously injured. We are very anxious, and many people inside the university are in panic and they don't know what to do. Some of them have already put down their last words. Some are saying that, come, you can get me, you can kill me, I'm ready to die. In fact, what they want is a way of escape and a way out. What more can we do, Chairman? Before the Assistant Director responds, in fact, I was there overnight, same as you. We should, in fact, have someone from the Bureau this morning. But the Bureau said no, and I hope that the SWT can address Dr. Fernando Zheng's question, whether there is any role for the government or the SW to play in the current crisis in Polytechnic U. Well, before I came this morning, I never imagined that the situation would be like this. There were only 3 staff members from SWT here in this room, but I'm sure there is someone in our department, in our bureau, and in other bureaus and departments listening to this meeting, thinking of solutions. I'm sure my department and my bureau have heard all you have said, and I think they are trying to find a way out. I'm not confident at all. I don't know what more we can do. I can only say that we return to the scene as soon as possible after this meeting. Even so, there is no way we can get close or to talk with the police. What more can we do, and where can we reason in this society?
可以回
Director, any words of wisdom? I think at this point in time here, in this chamber, I cannot answer you. I'll go back to my office and get my work done. You can join the second round, Mr. or Dr. Zhang. Dr. Cheng Chung Tai, Chairman. What is happening at the Polytechnic University is very clear. It is a humanitarian disaster. The students have been trapped for so long, and there were people who got injured, and there was no healthcare personnel. They've been left there for more than 10 hours without any treatment, and this is a disaster created by the police. This is not a first. Over the past couple of months, we have seen a lot of these happenings. First off, Chairman, I hope that the department would tell us since 12th of June how many registered social workers have been arrested. I'm sure you have the numbers there. There is no reason why you shouldn't. As of now, whether they are on duty or whether they turn up to conciliate as social workers. I'm sure you must have the numbers. If you don't, then you have a problem. I think we should widen it out a little bit. We shouldn't just look at the work or role of the social workers at the clash scenes. In the past week or so, I have received complaints from the social workers that they are providing the regular services, but they are given treatment by the NGOs, and they may be against the employment ordinance. I've asked for these to be followed up. I think I have to name names here. Singkonghui, Polong, Kok, Protection of Children Association, YWCA, then YMCA, and the Christian Association. I have about 10 organizations in this category. When something happens, say for instance in Zhongguanou a couple of weeks ago, these organizations would ask the staff to turn up for work. If they cannot turn up for work, they will have the leave balance deducted. This is against the employment ordinance. Also, as NGOs, you cannot ask them to take leave to buy their personal safety. There is also internal deployment. Singkonghui, for instance, they have a lot of branches. They are asking the staff members to turn up for work at the neighboring branch. They sign up for work with a certain branch, but if they turn up for work elsewhere, they will not be covered by insurance. If they are working at Unit A and they are asked to work in a branch close to where they live, if they say no, then they will have the leave balance deducted. I'm sure that the insurance for personal safety will not cover that. The insurance for the venue will not cover that. Under the employment ordinance, the outreach work may not be covered. Even for the domestic helpers, they are not supposed to work at alternative locations. The SWD did write a memo to the NGOs, but not everybody knows about it. The people in charge are saying that we are stirring up trouble, but the NGOs should not resort to these unlawful means to treat the staff members, because there is the safety implication. This is not about welfare, and they cannot make up for their absence by taking leave as compensation. So this is not a matter of personnel or human resources issues. Now, these NGOs are really massive organizations, and they are squeezing the workers, and this is wholly unacceptable. We're supposed to end at 11:55. I use my executive authority to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. Assistant Director, please. Thank you. Thanks very much for raising the issues regarding the social workers. We have taken note of that. We have received inquiries from members. We have issued instructions to the NGOs that they have to pay attention to the staff's safety and their work. So we've asked the NGOs to deal with the situation with flexibility. I think for individual cases, we have to look at them individually. Dr. Cheng, if you want further information, I can give you the information wholesale. The staff members are very concerned. Like Mr. Kwok Wai Keung said, if they take a lot of time off work, they will be misconstrued as adopting a certain political stance. The people are working from Taipo to Zhongguanou. If they cannot turn up for work, will you characterize them as in the yellow camp? There is white terror in the welfare sector. Do you understand where the problem lies? So this is not a human resources problem. It's not simply an employment issue. This is a political intimidation, and also the number of arrested. Chairman, we don't have the number of registered social workers who have been arrested. We're not going to seek information from the NGOs about the leave that has been taken. Mr. Shukafai for the second round, please. Chairman, thank you. In In the previous round, I asked questions of the deputations. Now I'd like to turn to the SWD. For the frontline social workers in this anti-extradition saga, would you encourage the social workers to go to the front line to help the young people? If they do turn up on the front line and get involved in trouble, get into trouble, would you offer any assistance? If they get arrested by the police, for instance, what assistance would you offer them? Chairman, thank you. Thank you for the question. In our communication with the NGOs, if the frontline social worker has to work at a certain location, then the NGO will have to offer all the necessary protection. We've never said that the social worker has to work in a particular place. Of course, some outreach social workers would be working at different places within a particular zone. But we're not saying that the NGOs have to deploy the staff to the protest scene to offer support. There are some units that are providing services at the location where the trouble occurred. So we'll ask the NGOs to pay attention to the development of the situation in deploying their staff. Mr. Xiu, so do you support them sending social workers to the front line? It all depends on the nature of services that they are providing. Say, for instance, for outreach social workers, they are serving Sam Shui Po, and Sam Shui Po is a district where they work. If trouble occurs, we would remind the frontline social workers to look after their own safety. If the SWD allows them to go to the front line, then if they get injured, if they get into trouble with the law, you should offer them as much support as possible, because you allow them to go to the front line. Also, there are a lot of families that involved. If their children get into trouble, the family members would also be troubled. I'm sure that the social workers' workload would be spiking. So how would you deal with the overtime work of the social workers? Well, it depends on the administrative measures of individual NGOs. If the social workers are putting in overtime, how would they compensate for that? Would that be a time off in lieu, or would that be financial recompense? It's entirely up to the NGOs to decide. Coming back to your previous question, the social workers of the NGO are not in the employ of the SWD, so we cannot say that the SWD is offering a full range of protection. It's down to the contract entered into between the social workers and the NGOs. Right? Other than the social workers, the police officers are putting in a lot of overtime work as well. Vice Chair. Chairman, the Assistant Director said that she has to consider that when I mentioned the disaster response mechanism. I'm unhappy with that. Now, for the Matawai building collapse, you wouldn't study it. How much longer do you think you have to consider that? We're suffering from social trauma or social disaster. You have to admit that, and this is going to the trauma is going to go on for 3, 5, 7 years. Why do you have to study that? I'm terribly unhappy with that. The director has been trying to answer the question, but some question remains unanswered. That the Rehabilitation Association said that they have to give support to those who are pending trial, and they have a complement of 3.5 staff members to deal with these cases. There are 4,428 people who have been arrested for anti-government, anti-extradition protests. I mean, even you have 400 or so, you simply can't cope with dealing with cases that may be stretching for 4 or 5 years. How can you cope with 3.5 people? As you said, the young people do have more needs, suicidal tendency, emotional troubles. There are so many outreach social workers, or overnight outreach social workers who are working overtime. They work solidly for a dozen or so days without any rest. But what about the manpower? Are you going to consider adding more manpower for the outreach or overnight outreach teams? Add 2 or 3 to each team, maybe. We're not talking about 4 months. We may be talking about 4 years down the line. So given this scale of disaster, isn't it right for you to come up with some mechanism to deal with the situation?
Assistant Director, thank you, Mr. Shiu, for your suggestion. That is measures to tackle major incidents. As I said, the current situation is unprecedented. I cannot say in a rush of what we are going to do. We have to sit down and think it through what we are going to do. As said by a social worker, faced with the situation of our young people, we are now feeling the way as we go. And this major situation has affected people of different backgrounds and sectors in society. I cannot say rashly what we are going to do. We will have to study, we have to plan, and we have to think about it. So that is by way of clarification and supplement. As regards support to the arrested persons, as I said, if organizations need any resources from us to assist or to support their increased workload or service volume, they can apply to our department and we will try to provide resources. Although some organizations have told us that while we are willing to give them extra resources, it is hard for them to employ experienced social workers to help in such a short time. And as for support to the arrestees, Mrs. Kwok can supplement. We've been checking with social workers of different organizations to see how we can provide better services. Now, for the outreach teams, whether they are for night drifters or daytime outreach social work teams, they're very good. They are very committed to how better services could be given to cases. We'll continue to discuss with these teams to understand their current situation and to provide coordination. A member asked about community support services to arrested young people. We have been trying to understand of the police the number of referrals and also how the services can be better utilized. As for the service of the Rehabilitation Association, we'll discuss with the association later to see how we can help in terms of manpower and resources. Thank you. Supplement regarding community support, as mentioned by one social worker, there used to be briefings by the police, but not now. We have tried to arrange with the police, but given the current scenario, it is hard for briefings to be arranged. But we have pointed out to the police that when things have settled, we will continue with such briefings to explain our services to them. I hope the Assistant Director can promise us, whether it be the Family and Child Welfare Division, Youth and Corrections Division, the Elderly Services, we can meet with the respective Assistant Director to reflect our views on how they can better respond to the current situation. I hope they can undertake to do that. No problem. All right. We have a little bit more time left before the meeting closes. So if you don't mind, I will invite some of the deputations to speak again. 1 minute each. I'm afraid I won't be able to accommodate. Or can you give me a show of hands, please, to let our secretariat know? All right, 1 minute each. All right, I will stop you right on the dot. Madam Yao Shui Ling, please switch on the microphone for Madam Yao. I apologize, Madam Yao, the second row, but you have started the timer. Let's do it again. Now for Mrs. Kwok and Ms. Pang, I know you are very committed, and there may be questions you can answer right on the spot, but here comes 2 questions I hope you can address at once. You should adjust services in the district when emergency services are needed, and if there are organizations that cannot cope with the large amount of cases they receive, can you allow them to have 24-hour access to the district social welfare officer? And can you have more temporary residential places? For instance, discuss with organizations that operate residential services for the youth. They can provide more temporary places and be flexible. I think ICMW has received over 100 cases in the last week. They cannot provide such services under the service agreement. Can you be flexible? Mr. Lau Ka-wing, I only asked one question. That is how to recognize or acknowledge the role of social workers at frontline. I think your answer was extremely clear. That is, after your communication with the police, the conclusion is under the current policy, social workers do not have any role to play in an unlawful assembly. No wonder when I was arrested, the police pointed at me and said that this social worker can be arrested. So you have not acknowledged the role of social workers at frontline. Rather, you have endorsed their power to arrest social worker. You said that you've never received any assistance for help from social worker. I formally lodge my request to you. I need your help, and let's see what you can do to help me. Thank you. Mr. Yang Petling. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to respond to SWD's remarks. Now, as of the 15th of November, I understand that 24 social workers have been arrested. Now, this information is now given to the SWD. Can you show your care to social workers? If you're not even aware of this figure, I really doubt whether you care for the welfare of social workers here. Mr. Shukafai asked some questions to SF. SWD supported social workers to provide support at the front line. because this is really a humanitarian crisis. A minute of delay, a day of delay can be disastrous. There may be difficulty in coordination, but can you work faster? Mr. Tam? Thank you. Mr. Kong Chi-yao? Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to follow up the question asked by Mr. Lau Ka-long. So, the response from the SWD is the police could arrest social workers, but you have not recognized the role of social workers in providing humanitarian support at clashes. All right? Can you give us a paper to confirm the role of social workers at scenes of demonstrations or protests so that social workers can provide humanitarian support in a safe environment? And you talked about what Mr. Lee Ka-chiu said, Mr. Johnny said. In fact, for someone to provide humanitarian support at a scene of a protest, there is bound to be some degree of danger. Madam Wong Chi-yan, I am very disappointed with your reply. You said that you had never imagined the situation today. Things have been developing for 5 months. Why have you said that you couldn't imagine things could be at this stage today? Now return the rights of rehabilitated persons, and please ask TD and HA to cooperate. Escort us to medical appointments and follow-ups. Whether it is the A&E department or not, whether it is some people who need first aid or not. Hospital authority should continue to provide support to patients. How do you regard human lives? What about road closures? I think the assistant director was saying that she never imagined that this meeting would coincide with what happened yesterday. Well, I was once given a warning letter from my assistant principal when I was in secondary school, and in Form 3 I became the class monitor, and then the disciplined master wanted to see me, and I asked the social worker to accompany me, and from that time on the discipline master would not bother me anymore. Now people don't know what is a Nanking massacre. Now this jacket I am wearing, I got it at 70% discount. Young people may soon forget what has happened today. I hope we will tell our students the truth, and I hope the radicals will not vandalize the facilities for the disabled. Ms. Lam Shin Man and Ms. Peng Shiu Mui. And Mr. Ko Polan. Mr. Ko, you go first. Thank you. I think the social work discipline is not entirely under the control of the SWD. SWD provides support, and how do we confirm the role of social workers? I think departments other than the SWD should also play a part. As regards how we can contact our clients, I think the police is considering it from the perspective of security. Now, very often, police social workers may be present at gang fights to support our clients. I think the current situation is not much different. Is it because there is a political element in recent events that social workers can no longer play this role? Ms. Lam Shiman. Given the current situation, police have a great power to say what can and cannot be done. And I'd like to know whether the SWD has already accepted this mode of operation. Are you being very cooperative? And the consequence of police action are now being borne by government departments. Shouldn't the police be held responsible? We are talking about human lives. The protesters there just want to leave. Why can't you give them a way out? Why must you entrap them? Isn't it a move to escalate the situation? This is all the government's making and the police making. Ms. Ha Xiu Mui. Ms. Peng Xin Mui. Speakers of mic. The SWD has the duty to take the initiative to tackle this problem. It should not wait. It cannot take time to plan because it should be anxious for what the people are anxious about. People of different age groups, people in institutions, the young and the old are being affected. What should be the SWD's role in coordination when there is a major incident? Ms. Gong, I'd like to ask whether the administration has considered convening inter-bureau or interdepartmental meetings to resolve the current situation. If not, can SWD, in a bid to advance justice and human rights, take the lead and convene a meeting to tackle this problem?
Director, please. Thank you very much for your comments. In terms of coordination, we will be only too delighted to do so in the area of welfare matters. For cross-departmental meetings, we are doing that. If this is not enough, we will review the situation and see how best we can do a better job. In terms of the role of social workers, as I said, we have to act in accordance with the law. And I'd like to remind everybody that unlike what Mr. Koh said, we're not in charge of all social workers in Hong Kong. All we can do is to remind everybody that they discharge their duties without breaching the law and also looking after themselves. As to the services for the disabled, we are just as concerned. There are some facilities that got trashed and vandalized, and the disabled daily life is very much affected. I think we all have to stay calm and collected and help those in need around us. The assistant directors of different branches are contemplating measures to help. There are some deputations who mentioned the assistance for the disabled and for the ill. We will consider that. That's so much for the fruitful public hearing. Our heart lies with the PolyU. Now, thank you all very much. We don't have any AOB items. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.